I was just on a wonderful podcast called Rock Your Midlife, and I really appreciated the focus of Dr. Ellen on self-compassion. I think that was probably our biggest common ground. And I was able to talk about all of my favorite things, which is like how you can stop looking at your body as a project and start seeing your body as your life partner. So I appreciate the opportunity. I hope you give it a listen.
Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit. Hey there, it's Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife. I am thrilled that you are here today because super interesting and important conversation that we're going to be having today about aging with body liberation. You know, midlife and aging can be really, really challenging, especially because we live in this world that tells us that and hides the evidence, and we're supposed to hide the evidence that we're growing old. So, you know, as we go through midlife, it's like, wait, don't show that you're really getting old. And on top of it, you know, we're told that the most important thing about us is our looks, which is totally not true. I tell my listeners and clients all the time, the most important thing about you is not your looks. But when we feel that way, and on top of it, we're told that we need to be young and we need to be thin. And when we're not those things, we don't feel okay about ourselves. It's really, really difficult. So what we end up doing is we go to cockamamie BS solutions, diets and pills and things that tell us whether it's a cream or a pill or a crazy diet that somehow, if we do this thing, if we buy this service or this product, somehow we'll lose the weight, we'll look younger, and then we'll feel better about our bodies and ourselves. But it never works. And I think my guest and I are here to say that you can start feeling great about your body right now. You don't have to put off going to the beach, traveling, meeting the love of your life, feeling good about yourself when you lose the weight. And when I'm working with clients, I'm always like, let's focus on the things that you want to do that you're putting off until you lose the weight. Let's do them now. Let's focus on health and well-being and let the weight fall where it is. Because you know, eating really should be easy. It's not that complicated. You know, I've been a dietitian for 3 decades, and it really is eat more plants, eat less processed foods, get a more protein, eat until you are satisfied rather than stuffed, listen to your hunger. But we get all of these messages about how we're supposed to eat, and we externalize our hunger, and eating has gotten really difficult. So I think today we're going to really help you to get on track about how you feel about your body, about how you feel about your eating, because we're here to have a good relationship with our bodies. I think that's a super important piece. When you love your body, you really want to take care of it. So there is an alternative to beating yourself up, to going on that weight loss hamster wheel, to going on diets. It's aging with body liberation, and it's the topic of today's show. My guest is registered dietitian nutritionist Deb Benfield, and Deb invites you to blaze a liberating new path to a respectful, nurturing relationship with your aging body. She has helped hundreds of women heal their relationship with food, eating, and their bodies in her more than 35-year career as a registered dietitian nutritionist and registered yoga teacher specializing in preventing and treating disordered eating. Now in her 60s, she focuses her research, training, passion, and clinical and lived experience on the intersection of pro-aging and body liberation. And her work is really rooted in helping you shift your relationship with your body from your life's project to your life partner. And I love that. Imagine if our bodies were an instrument rather than an ornament, our life partner instead of this self-improvement project, nourishing your body in midlife and beyond to support growing older in alignment with your values. And for me, I'm always thinking about, what's my 80-year-old self or my 100-year-old self going to thank me for what I do and how I treat my body today? Be thinking about how you're eating, how you're taking care of your body for that future self. Recognize internalized ageism and end it. I mean, I recognized this the other day. I was in a yoga class, and usually I look around and I'm always the oldest person in the room. And for some reason that day, I realized this the next morning. That idea didn't go through my head because I have gotten rid of this idea, we internalize this idea that I'm older and I don't fit in, and everybody nobody sees me and everyone's viewing me as that older person. And that's really internalized. I think we do it more to ourselves than the reality. I think a lot of younger people want the wisdom. I have so many young people when I show up with this attitude of, I feel great about who I am. I have this internalized eternal energy. They're really grateful for how I'm showing up. They're like, oh, you make me feel great about getting older and about what is possible. So I think recognizing how we internalize ageism and end it, and untangling from the diet wellness culture mesh, and also seeing midlife and beyond as a time of emergence and authority. So welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Deb. It's so awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
And I have to say, I found Deb on Instagram. What's her handle again on Instagram? I should have it in front of me.
Aging Body Liberation.
Yeah, Aging Body Liberation. And it's amazing. It's really incredible. She has a lot of women who are of various ages and body types feeling good about themselves. So I would say that's one tip that I always tell people is check your media feed. Like, what are you watching? Because subconsciously, when we see these images, and I hate when I see, women who are younger and the marketers are marketing them to older women, or everybody has to be a certain size, or even, saying to a middle-aged woman, like, yeah, you could be a size 6. And like, why do you even want to be a size 6, right? Like, instead of just saying, let's focus on how we can be healthy. So I'm curious, how did we get here? I'm always scratching my head and thinking, how did we get to this place where most women have some level of body dysmorphia, negative body image, disordered eating disorders? How do we get to this world where something as simple as just eat healthy, eat until you're satisfied, enjoy your food should be the way that we're approaching our nutrition? And how did we get here?
Wow. Well, I think there are many different pieces to the story. I think it's very multifactorial. I can tell you that in the long career that I've had, things have gotten much worse instead of better. It's very frustrating to work on something where it just feels like things are just worse instead of better. And I think, the internet and social media has just really accelerated the potential disinformation out there. And I would say also this idea that we must look like a celebrity, celebrity culture and the Hollywoodification of how we look at bodies and feel pressure. And now we have all these filters that we can apply and Photoshop. So I don't even know if we're seeing real bodies anymore. I have a membership, and we were just talking this morning about this, noticing when our children notice how bodies look all different kinds of ways instead of the bubble that they've been living in. I was telling a story about my son when he was like maybe 7 or 8. I was watching a French film, and he crawled up in my lap and we were talking, and he looked over at the television, and it was a beach scene, and he said to me, "Did those people know they're in a movie?" But it was because there were all kinds of bodies, right? He just wasn't accustomed to seeing, like in a Hollywood film, like what bodies are portrayed like. And these were just all kinds of regular people. So our eye is so trained to only see one very specific kind of body. And then we apply that to ourselves. Like, we are supposed to look like this ideal. And certainly we don't see aging bodies that are very diverse. The pro-aging movement has, in my opinion, made a lot of mistakes in that we've only lifted up very thin silver-haired women that are white usually. There's very little diversity, and I'm constantly pushing against that. And I think there is itsy bitsy openings in that, because it's just people don't realize that's what's happening until they're in, and then they go, wait a minute, it's all the same. It's the same kind of diet culture message with silver hair. We just need to really look at body liberation in a much bigger, wider lens. So I don't know if that answers your questions, because there's lots of ways to answer that how do we get here question.
Yeah, I think that the media piece is a big piece of it because we
Hmm.
do social comparison. So as human
Sure,
beings,
sure.
we evolve to compare ourselves to other people in small tribes to see where we fit in. And now we're
Hmm.
comparing
Hmm.
ourselves to images which are fake or, as you said, impossibly thin women. And that is, I mean, I'm part of that silver hair movement, which I really love. But you're right. It's kind of like these women are still supposed to be these sexy, gorgeous, youthful appearing, even though their hair is silver. So
Hmm.
we've kind of normalized that it's cool and hip and
Hmm.
chic to have silver hair. But at the same time, we're not seeing, as many body types and,
Hmm.
normalizing aging in the way that we can. So I'm curious, what kind of problems and worries do women come to you with? What are you seeing in your practice?
Well, I tend to get women who are either struggling not to relapse into an eating disorder that they had earlier in their lives. That's a big percentage of the folks that come to me because they don't want to slip back into their eating disorder.
Mm.
And they feel themselves doing that as they see their bodies change. They feel themselves having those old thoughts and potentially going back to some of those old restrictions or overexercise. So they're trying to just like stay with their recovery. So that's a big piece. The other piece is women who are just really tired of diet culture. They just had it. Like the thought of doing another diet is like, I just can't do it anymore, which is beautiful celebration, but need some support because it's kind of scary. I would say those are the two biggest groups of people that come to me. So women who want to be comfortable in how their bodies are changing as they age and feel vital and well, but really focus on their body's functionality and energy instead of continuing to look at appearance.
Yeah,
So
and what I'm seeing too is that I always think women, I see a lot of women who think that the weight is the problem. And they think that
yeah,
it's just, it feels, and it was my way when in my 40s, I was a personal fitness trainer and I was that skinny dietitian telling everybody to get skinny. And it seemed like focusing on the weight seems so tangible. Like if I can get that number
yeah,
down, then I'll be happy. And I think when we were talking off
yeah.
the air a little bit in a world where it's everything is crazy and there's so much to truly be concerned about, it can
Mhm.
sometimes feel
Mhm.
like weight is something that I have control over.
Mhm. Sure. And as you age, you're realizing like there's not a lot of control. Actually, that's an illusion. So, yeah, it's very attractive to think about being in control of this one thing. And there's a story that we carry that, and it's probably true for some of us, and more of us than I would like to say, that to stay relevant as you age or visible as you age, there is an increasing pressure to look fit, right? To look the part of somebody who's on top of things, because that is how patriarchy works, right? That's the culture that we've all absorbed. So there is a story. I've had many clients tell me that they're afraid that they won't be as relevant if they let themselves relax a bit about all of this pressured exercise and fitness work. So
And
it's
again, that brings in that
tough.
issue of the internalized ageism, which I found
Sure.
when I was in that yoga class. And it was the weirdest thing because the next morning I woke up and I thought, it didn't occur to me. Usually I'm there, I'm a little self-conscious because I'm usually
Mhm.
easily the oldest person. And then my bestie's usually there by my side. And she's a couple years younger than me, but most of the students are in their 20s and 30s. And the
Mhm.
minute I didn't have that, there was this everybody belongs. So I think that we're
Yeah.
bringing it's very ironic that so many older women, midlife women, are bringing ageism into the arena themselves.
Yeah. Well, we've been exposed for our entire lives to ageism, and therefore we've internalized it just like we have all the other isms, right? So we've just lived with it for a longer period of time. So of course it's there. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're a normal human and you've absorbed what you've been living with. Are the stories that we're hearing when we're children are like the older people, especially the older women, are really terrifying characters. They're rarely like exciting. people that you want to get to know in the story. So, yeah, starting when we were kids, just like everything else, we have the same stories about larger bodies, right? Darker bodies. That we're full of that, and we have to like notice it and start to look at ourselves with some honesty and vulnerability to go, yeah, I don't want to believe that anymore. I want to challenge those beliefs. That's all you can do is notice it and challenge it whenever possible.
And pay attention to what you're paying attention to in terms of media
Yes,
images. And I think we're seeing
true.
a little bit of more older actresses getting roles, but still not the diversity
Hmm.
that exists in the real population. So I'm curious, when you have a woman
Right.
who comes to you, let's say it's particularly a woman who is going through the menopausal transition, which of course is
Hmm.
causing havoc on the brain and the body and causing,
Yeah.
gaining weight and thickening of the waist and
Hmm.
all kinds of things. Where do you
Hmm.
start in terms of like she wants to feel good in her body and she wants to take care of her body, but she's
Yeah.
really at this tug of war with not liking what's going on and
Yeah.
resisting diet culture. Where do you start? How do you help her?
Yeah. It very much depends. You as a dietitian understand that everybody is so unique when they come to you. I had a brand new client this morning, and she has a history of an eating disorder that is resurfacing and really wanting to not go there. At the same time, she doesn't really want her weight to change. So that is something that we have to really get honest about. It's like, I highly recommend that my clients kind of table their concern about the scales, to not weigh themselves, to not track on my fitness pal, that kind of thing. And that's enough of a challenge. And from there, to try to really shift the control effort toward the caring conversation. And this is what we have in common, I believe, in this like wanting to really learn to care for yourself and inquire as you go through your day with as much intentionality as possible. How do I want to feel? How can I care for myself? I don't want to starve myself. I don't want to exhaust myself. I want to give myself choices and give myself a mix of some pleasure and joy, along with things that I know will really support my vitality. So it's not a checkbox kind of thing, right? It's not something where I can give people numbers to track with. I try to encourage folks to get curious and relate to their bodies in a very different, kind of more generous way, slowly over time. So there's some practices. I'm very focused on practices and encouraging people to kind of slow down and get connected to their bodies, which if they can all at all do that, of course, that's a skill set that has to be built sometimes. And as you talk about a lot, self-compassion, self-compassion, self-compassion practice, because this is messy. This is not a straight line. There are going to be days that you feel like you mess up. There are going to be days that you feel like, you're a mess. So to see if you can shift that tone that you take with yourself to a kinder, more caring tone. And then the nourishment really does fall into place when you're not trying so hard to control. It's the control tends to backfire. There's this like rigidity that creates for a lot of people binge behaviors. So trying to give yourself nourishment throughout the day so that your brain receives that really nice, consistent energy that allows you to not feel some of the ways that menopause can make you feel. Some of the time, I wonder if menopausal symptoms aren't worsened by restriction, because the human brain so requires consistent nourishment. If it gets too hungry, hangry is a word for a reason. If you get too undernourished, you're going to be anxious and foggy and not your best self. So I'm a big fan of like trying to feed yourself throughout the day with satisfying choices, and then stopping when you're satisfied and moving, with a much more gentle attitude.
Yeah, I
I
love
hope
that. Well,
that,
I know self-compassion changes everything. I know it did for me.
yep,
I was
yep.
super hard on my body when I was a trainer. It was like this attitude of I was working out 4 to 6 hours a day with all my clients and, counting every single calorie. And then I learned self-compassion,
Yeah.
and it was all of a sudden not doing this because you hate your body, but doing it
Mhm.
because you love your body. And the thing that's so cool
Mhm.
about self-compassion and body image and intuitive eating is you don't need to change your body to feel good about yourself. You can start feeling good about yourself now by
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
that attitude. Think about, like, what would I say to a friend right now? Like, if my friend was
Mhm.
struggling right now, I wouldn't tell her,
Mhm.
go on a diet. I would tell her, what do you need to take care of yourself? Is simply asking the question of, how am I feeling? Checking in. How am
Yeah.
I feeling? And what do I need right now? I have my clients
Mhm.
just make a list of, 5 categories: body, mind, heart, spirit, and relationships, and list out all the ways that you want to care for yourself. So your body, yeah, I want to make myself a healthy meal or a snack. I want to take a nap. I want to,
Mhm.
stretch, dance, move my body, my mind. I want to do a little bit of journaling, or maybe I want to read, or, get some
Mhm.
therapy. My heart, maybe I
Mhm.
just want to, dance, listen to some music, engage in some
Mhm.
kind of spiritual practice, and take out the list when you're struggling, and do something on this. I think that's another piece too, is that it's so ironic. On the one hand, we're told to restrict, 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 not eat. But then when we're told to
Mhm.
comfort ourselves, a lot of my clients are coming to me, they're starving themselves all day. And then six
Mhm.
o'clock,
Mhm.
they're starving and they have a glass of wine. So of
Mhm.
course, appetite goes up, blood sugar
Mhm.
goes down, and
Mhm.
there's nothing in the fridge. And so they'll just, snack on whatever, and then they beat themselves up. But we need to find other ways to nourish ourselves
Right.
while still nourishing ourselves. So as you said, Deb, it's so important that you're having the calories that you need, because the brain is the most hungry
Mhm.
organ in the body. It needs glucose. And
Yes.
if you
Yes.
starve yourself, your brain's not going to function. It's going
Mhm.
to exacerbate all of your symptoms. Plus, when you're on a diet, when you're starving yourself, cortisol levels go up because your body goes
Mhm.
into fight and flight, which is ramping up
Right.
appetite, fat deposition around the middle. You're feeling terrible. So it's about
Mhm.
nourishing yourself with healthy eating, but then also finding
Mhm.
other ways to nourish yourself.
Right. I think that the the loud messages around midlife and older feel like disordered messages. This work harder, work harder, work harder on like heavy lifting and hit and zone two and all the pushy messages around moving at the same time. Reduce all your carbohydrates, if not like allowing any carbohydrates, and getting rid of pretty much all the pleasure in your diet. I mean, it just is too hard to sustain. So it sets up what you're describing as like restrict, binge, and it can wear you down. You're in that lizard brain part, right? You're so edgy and reactive that you may blame all that on your hormones, but in reality, you may just need to give yourself a lot more rest and consistent nourishment. And I'm a fan of carbohydrates, so I think you need to give yourself some of that along the way.
Yeah, carbohydrates and also a nap. Like, I took a nap before.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the nap. I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago. And, after that radiation treatments, I just
Mm,
started napping every day. And it was
yeah.
a big, like, out of my control, need to double down on the
Mhm,
self-care.
mhm.
And so, yeah, we don't see a lot of messages about go take a nap.
Yeah, I'm a yoga nidra fan. So
Uh-huh.
yoga 24-minute yoga nidra, I just cannot believe how much better I feel. I have so much more energy when I give myself that treat. Yeah.
So what do you do about the guilt piece? Because I find that a lot with my clients, either when they decide that, yeah, they want to take that jazzercise class, or they want to
Hmm.
take the time to do some food prep and create some healthy meals, but then they feel really
Hmm.
guilty about the self-care.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is that something you find with your clients? I know with a lot of my clients, they start to take better care of themselves, and then they start to feel guilty. And I know I say, well, guilt's a
Interesting.
productive emotion if you are doing a behavior that is not in alignment with your core values. So if you yell at your kids, right, and you
Hmm.
feel guilty
Hmm.
about that,
Hmm.
that you change your behavior. But in the case of
Hmm.
self-care, it's
Hmm.
not productive. But what do you tell your clients, or do your clients experience guilt when they start to because sometimes I think, when we open up this door of self-compassion, sometimes a lot of emotions come up, and that can be really hard to deal with. And then when we start taking care of ourselves, we can start to feel a little guilty because we feel like we're being selfish, which there's nothing wrong with being selfish, but we start to feel like, because we've also been taught as women to put everybody else first. So how do you
Right.
help clients who are kind of
Absolutely.
feel a little guilty about doing things like taking a nap, or taking
Mhm.
time for food prep, or taking time, to spend time in nature, take a walk, take a yoga class?
I feel strongly that when you are living in alignment with your values and allowing yourself to be cared for, you are a much better person in the world. You actually, when you take care of yourself, are much more capable of caring for others. It's that old, like, oxygen mask story. Like, literally, it is so true. You are going to have capacity for showing up for others when you have given yourself your own attention. So that may be too basic, but I think that's what it comes down to. I think what I get concerned about is when people feel shame, and like really helping people see that they're trying so hard to be good. I think that's what's fueling a lot of diet culture. It's just trying so hard to be good. Everybody's just trying to be good. There's just so many press, in my opinion, disinformation kinds of programs out there that people get lost in trying to be good on this program and that program and this program and that program, so that they're just completely confused and feel like they're bad, feel like they're bad people. Diet culture over time makes you feel like you're bad or there's something wrong with you. So to try to acknowledge that you're already good, and that when you tend to yourself over time, you know more than you realize, that you are the expert of you. I'm an expert about nutrition, yes. I'm an expert about some things in yoga, yes. But I am not an expert of you as a person. And I need to really work with you to figure out what works for you best, what aligns with your values. And the other thing is, this is the last chapter, folks. As we age, the truth is this is our last act. You may not want to talk about that. I think it's important to talk about that, because really getting clear on how you want to live this part of your life. And most people want to have some joy, want to have some access to who they really are, and to bring who they really are, and to feel fully alive. And you can't do that when you're underfed and tired. You can't bring that. So there's a shift. There's a big shift required to give yourself what you need first, so that you can be the caretaker. I am in a place that I have grandkids and I have a mom that has dementia and needs my care. So it's another chapter of being sandwiched, right? It's like I'm 65 and I feel sandwiched some days. So I better be taking care of myself, or I can't bring it. I can't bring it to all the people that need me.
Yeah, that is so important. And I love what you said about this is the last chapter. And I think that,
Yes, this is.
I'm finding my 60s to be so different than what I would have envisioned 60 to be. So much more fun, and
Uh-huh.
so
Agreed.
much just feeling good, having fun, making a
Mhm.
difference, feeling authentic. And I think that, if you're listening and you're I think we think that, again, that's such a the diet culture gets us to, it's almost like we're the diet culture media is like sucking away all of our energy. It almost feels like
Yeah.
it's a matrix, right? So instead of saying, yes, as you
Mm.
said, this is your last chapter, this is your last decades that you have, sort of the second
Mhm.
adulthood, to enjoy yourself, and don't waste
Mhm.
it wasting away.
Yeah. Yeah. And counting things. I just like, I'm sorry, I've just had it with some of these tracking devices. I think it's just really contributing to a lot of suffering. And so unplugging from those devices and tuning in is my constant recommendation.
I do encourage people, I don't know if you agree, to track how many different types of fruits and veggies you can eat a week. Because I feel like, I don't know if you feel like there's some, like, so how do we do the gentle nutrition? Like, I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
supporting your
Yeah.
microbiome, particularly
Yeah.
as you're transitioning through menopause, because what happens is the microbiome changes as estrogen decreases, the diversity of the
Mm-hmm.
microbiome becomes
Mm-hmm.
less diverse. It actually starts to resemble more of the male microbiome. And there's a big connection between your microbiome and your immune system and your mental health. So I'm always
Mm-hmm.
telling people, get a diversity, like let's have some fun. Let's see if we
Yeah.
have a huge garden. So I easily probably eat 10 to 15 different fruits and veggies every single day, but like
Yeah.
just, tracking how many different types of produce you can eat, go to the farmer's market, try something
Mm-hmm.
new. I personally kind of like to keep track of my steps because I like to challenge myself to move. So, I mean, I guess how do
Mm-hmm.
we have that gentle balance? Because you're not telling someone to just like
Yeah.
watch Netflix and eat potato chips. So, and then
Right.
because I think that's people's first reaction. My God, if I give up diet culture, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna, sit and watch TV and eat
Yeah.
whatever. How do we do a gentle balance where
Yep.
we're giving people some, guidance, helping them figure it out, without I
Yeah.
agree with you, all of those tracking devices. Who's got the time to do any
Yeah.
of that? It's so stressful. But so how
Yeah.
do you work with people to give them some gentle nutrition, gentle
Yeah.
wellness advice without getting into that, track everything?
Yep. I think I love what you said because I think the first reaction that someone has when you encourage moving away from diet culture is I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself around yummy food or, as you said, a chance to rest. So there tends to be a period of time that someone needs to kind of recalibrate. So I tend to provide a soft structure, and you called it gentle nutrition, and it's very individualized for me. I don't just like pull the rug out from somebody and like encourage them to not have any guidance. So I think finding a place for someone to start to begin to realize that they can trust themselves, that you actually feel so much more energy when you do eat more fruits and vegetables. And that makes you want to eat more fruits and vegetables. And like the more you tune in, the more you notice that your body has a lot of wisdom to offer. And that's not true for everybody. If you've been through a lot of trauma, if you've been through a lot of diet culture or an eating disorder, it's hard to get to that place that you notice your body's wisdom. So it's a process, but learning to trust that your body can give you guidance. And in the meantime, until you feel a lot more confident in that, some soft structure around, for me, timing is important, not going too long, because one of the things that will destroy your gut microbiome is not eating. That, like, not eating for a lot of hours does a lot of damage. So, trying to feed yourself more consistently with a variety of foods, with some pleasure along the way and movement. It doesn't have to be these harsh, rigid guidelines. I highly agree with what you're saying about more diversity with plants. You can't go wrong with that. But it depends on where somebody is. I want them to realize that their body is going to nudge them in that direction because they feel better when they eat that way. And that has momentum. They will start to want more and more of that and less of that feeling of, oh, I've had too much to eat. That doesn't feel good. Over time, you don't want to feel that way. So you want to stop when you're satisfied. So what satisfies you? I mean, it's an opportunity to get to know yourself. And why not? I mean, this is the best time to get to know yourself so you can enjoy this part of your life. And I agree with you. The 60s have been a really wonderful time for me. And I think women who are perimenopausal and in the throes of that need to hear us say that. As a postmenopausal woman, it gets much better. It gets much better.
Well, particularly if you take that home, the brain starts to change, as estrogen
Mm-hmm.
decreases. I'm just amazed as I study more of this, that estrogen receptors are everywhere. And so the
Yeah.
brain starts to change. you get more selfish. And I think that's this whole point of midlife too. As you said earlier, we start to realize that there's less time in front of us than behind us. And those
Yeah,
things that our soul
true,
is saying, like, let's do that.
true.
Let's do that traveling. Let's find that relationship that we want. Let's
Mhm,
do that, write
mhm,
that book. Let's get that yoga teacher
mhm.
training. Let's do all of these things we've always thought
Yeah.
about and actually get in motion. And once we get
Mhm,
through that kind of inflamed period of the menopausal transition, the perimenopause, we do feel a lot better. And I think you're right. I mean, it makes me think about showing ourselves more and just how I think there's another group of those of us on Instagram just showing how great life can be, but not with
mhm.
that filter on top of it.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
there's a lot of that going on with, I mean, I do know influencers who, um, they'll get all dressed up and act like this is like their life on Instagram is not their life in the
Mhm,
world. Like when I show,
mhm.
that I live in Costa Rica half the year and I live in this beautiful farm in Vermont, it's my life and it feels really good. But showing that this time of life can be really, really joyful. But I think you're right that the food piece is a big piece of that. But again, doing this from this place of self-compassion, of doing it because you love and care about yourself. And I think even if, I don't know if you find, if you can work with the self-compassion piece, that the eating starts to improve. If you're finding it's really
Mhm.
hard for me to get off the strict eating, but I can sort of start to make some headway into being a little kinder to myself, the way that I talk to myself, how I
Yeah.
treat myself, maybe a little bit, having more fun with my movement. You finding sometimes that
Mhm.
some people you can approach the self-compassion conversation and that the eating starts to improve from that perspective of eating to care for ourselves when they start the self-compassion.
Yeah, I many times say I can tell that we're getting somewhere when I'm working with a client when they say to me, I'm realizing I'm not beating myself up like I used to. That always makes me so happy. It feels
I
like
love
a
that.
corner has been turned. Yes.
And I read the
That,
coolest thing the other day that it was in Marie Shriver's Sunday paper, and she was interviewing someone, and it's the woman who has the Unf Your Brain podcast. And
uh-huh.
as she said, when you find yourself judging yourself, so if you say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just ate that," then you follow it
Mhm.
with, "Because I'm human." Right. I can't
Yeah.
believe that I,
Mhm.
just consumed, half a pizza. I'm human. This idea, and that's the second
Mhm.
element of self-compassion, this common
Mhm.
humanity
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
human
Mhm.
beings eat emotionally. We do. We give weddings,
Absolutely.
funerals,
Absolutely.
all that's how the earliest way we learned kind of to comfort ourselves. Or if
Mhm.
anything, yelling at your kids or messing up at work,
Yeah.
missing a meeting, whatever it is, just like, oh yeah, I effed up. I'm only human, kind of
Yeah.
really, I think, softens that. But I love that idea when you start to notice it. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I've
Mhm.
been practicing
Mm-mm.
self-compassion since my late 40s when I did my dissertation. And it's a practice.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
constantly grow and you constantly change.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, what do you hope women that you work with will leave with? What's your big, like, gosh, when you start with somebody, I hope in our work that you end up here. What do you hope they get?
I think having a lot more peace, for lack of a better word, I think that's not the perfect word, like more ease in their relationship with how they nourish themselves, how they move their bodies and their bodies. Like having a lot more space for feeling like they're caring for, like that less edgy, pushy relationship. I mean, I'm very focused on relationship. I'm relational in the way that I work, and I'm relational in how it comes to the way you are making choices about your daily life. So a lot more connection and a lot more ease is my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So, and if people want to work with you, what's the best place to find you?
Well, probably go into Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, I'll tell you my website, but Instagram, Aging Body Liberation, would help you get everywhere else. But my website is simply my name, Deborah, Debra, Benfield. So .com.
All right. So DeborahBenfield.com and Aging Body Liberation. I have to say,
that's it.
Follow Aging Body Liberation because you do really cool stuff. And I just want to say too that, I was really touched. I think a lot of us are feeling the grief in the world. And you touched on that and saying that, it's hard to post and be kind of upbeat and as creative. And that's a piece of self-compassion too, is this grief piece of noticing. And I think for me, when I work with people, I help a lot with emotional eating that, we're all grieving. We are grieving about what's happening in the world. We're grieving about aging. We're grieving about relatives and people that we love. We're grieving about the environment. And, grieving is just a normal response to loss. And I think to see as a motivation to get over this diet culture and this addiction to, my body has to be perfect and I have to eat this way, thinking about like, what are the problems you're seeing in the world and what do you want to do? I mean, maybe you want to, hold a bake sale and donate money, or, you want to help people in your community or help the environment. I think midlife is really the time that we start to think about legacy and thinking about not just monetarily, what am I leaving, but what am I doing to be part of the change that I want to see in the world? And it really starts with each of us. I think each of us that really rejects diet culture, that rejects the messages that we're seeing, whether that's anti-aging. And I think, as you said, the pro-aging too, that we're supposed to pro-age, but we're still supposed to look cute, look, hot and sexy and on those kind of things. I think that's okay too. I think we each have to decide, but it's all about feeling good about who you are and being authentic and not giving away your precious life force energy to whether it's the media or diet culture. And as you said, just figure out what works for you, because you really are the best authority on your own well-being. But there are people like myself and people like Deb who are here to help you. So if you want to reach out to me, it's themidlifewhisperer.com. I would be happy to support you. I think we probably have a similar perspective on, I look at weight as it's an outcome, but it's not the focus, because we don't have the control over it the way that the diet industry wants you to believe. So thank you, Deb, for being here. It's been a great, very fruitful conversation. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, you can check out Deb at Aging Body Liberation, and you can check out me at themidlifewhisperer.com. We'll catch you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit.